Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me.
Hello and welcome to our channel. I'm here to help empower African and Black diaspora business owners to bring their expertise to the continent, starting in Kenya. Our goal? To guide you in enhancing critical sectors like legal, agriculture, and healthcare using the power of your knowledge and collective skill sets. This platform is all about providing you with the unfiltered truth. For those who understand the importance of protecting their business and family, you're in the right place. Given the restrictions some platforms have on content like ours, don't forget to check the links in our bio for the full, uncut versions of our videos. With my experience as an entrepreneur, former tech founder, and professional athlete, I'm here to connect driven individuals, ready to use their businesses as a beacon of hope in these challenging days. Enjoy the video and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay rooted, stay ready.
Talk to me about what's going on at the border. That one's out of left field.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. And the fact that it is simultaneously an undeniable fact. I mean, you could go visit it, right? And you could see it. And it's a mystery. Why would anybody allow this to happen? It violates all sorts of things that we all thought were beyond even needing to be discussed, right? The nation has to control its borders. That's part of... Anyway, you asked what's taking place. You want me just to describe what I saw?
Please.
So my son and I, Zach, went to Panama, and we traveled to the province of Darien, to the edge of the Darien Gap. Actually, we went into the Darien Gap, but we traveled by car to the edge of it. The Darien Gap is it's a section of the Pan American Highway that has never been built. The Pan American Highway runs from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska to the southern tip of South America.
Whoa.
You can drive the whole way except for the 60-mile stretch at the border between Colombia and Panama. What is there is a wilderness. There's a national park. And it is a famously difficult stretch of land to cross. There are currently thousands of people, thousands a day, being beckoned across the Darien Gap in the jungle without their parents. Oh, it's a humanitarian disaster. Yeah, the Darien Gap is a very difficult piece of habitat to traverse if you know what you're doing. These people do not. They've been induced to try to cross the gap with no understanding of how to equip themselves or what they're actually going to face there. And, it's the kind of habitat where you can slide down a muddy hill and break your leg, and that can kill you because it prevents you from getting out. So it takes accidents and greatly enhances their lethality. But you've got this migration. All of the migrants who will speak to us are economic migrants. They're all very clear about this, which means they're not eligible for political asylum in the U.S., though that is the basis on which they are crossing our southern border. But there is another migration, which is housed separately, which I found very surprising. It is a migration that is almost entirely Chinese, is predominantly young men. Whether the fact that they are of military age is meaningful or not is impossible to say. But what I can say is that unlike all of the other migrants that we encountered, who were surprisingly open about talking about what they were doing and where they were headed and what had motivated them to go, the Chinese migrants, who are housed separately by the Panamanians, they're housed in places that are not towns. Interestingly, there's a camp called San Vicente, which Secretary Mayorkas visited when he was in Panama, right before it was expanded greatly. But the Chinese who are moving through the San Vicente camp are unwilling to talk. They give off a hostile air, and it's not clear to me why this should be the case. If they were, for example, fleeing oppression at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, you would expect them to be at least curious about citizens of this country that they were apparently going to start a new life in. That would be a natural thing. And even if they were afraid to talk because they were afraid of what might happen if word got back, you would not get a hostile sense. You would get a sense that they were conflicted or trapped and couldn't talk. But that was not at all the impression they left. The impression they left was one of hostility and mockery, and it was decidedly disturbing. They are walking into these little towns that exist on the edge of the jungle. These towns have had refugee camps built up by the international community, so the Panamanians aren't happy to have this massive migration moving through their habitat, but they have no control over it.
How's that possible?
Well, the Panamanian border is supposed to be controlled by the Senafront, which is the Panamanian Border Authority.
Is it a separate entity?
Yeah, it's a military police entity that is charged with controlling the frontier.
And they don't answer to the Panamanian government?
No, they do. Oh, they absolutely do.
Okay,
they're
so
a part of the Panamanian government.
Got it. So then Panama could stop this.
Well, see, this is the thing. We, as little people, don't understand international relations. Could Panama technically stop it? Yes, they could technically stop it. But what would happen to Panama if they did presumably explains why they don't.
It is the people with the gall and the gumption to say that the Lord's prophetic words are lies and they're manipulation and they're just dreams and they're not true and they're just whatever. It is the people who do that who are the ones who are going to be part of all the judgments that are coming when this war comes out. So people who laugh and scoff at what God is saying, they rebuff it, they say, oh no, it's spreading fear and things like that. Just a moment, please. Those are the people who will find that Bible verses such as, I will mock at them when their calamity comes. Those are the people who will find themselves in such situations because the word of the Lord was too much for them to humble themselves to. If you don't humble yourself, you will never repent. And repentance is the greatest key that we are being offered, the greatest key that we are being afforded right now, as the prophetic word of the Lord is not yet fulfilled. So the key that we're being offered right now is not, oh, I'm testing these prophecies, because how can you test a bomb? That's what I'm prophesying about, just in case anyone is confused. I'm not prophesying about, oh, one day we will see victory and one day the nation will be restored to her former glory. I'm prophesying about nuclear bombs. So that's going to be a pretty difficult test for those who need testing to test. And so God says that China will be able to strike down American defenses faster than America can raise them up.
After getting hit with AK-47 rounds and almost losing a leg in Afghanistan, I'm now on a new mission to help Americans prepare for an imminent and devastating attack on America. You see, as an expert in military intelligence, I recently obtained this critical intel from the U.S. Congressional Advisory Board on Homeland Security. According to this intel, Russia, with the support of China, could soon attack us with an electronic nuclear weapon. The government doesn't want you to see this congressional report, but as you can see, it says in plain English that this attack could cause a nationwide blackout lasting 1 year that could kill up to 90% of the American people through starvation and societal collapse. Unlike traditional weapons, we won't feel any blast on the ground, and there will be no mushroom cloud. Instead, this is a silent, untraceable bomb that's detonated above the atmosphere in outer space.
The Russia-China war is coming. Look for no provocation. Look for no warning. Look for blitzkrieg, sudden, without warning, without provocation. Nothing will give it away that an attack is coming until the day that the Allies have landed on American shores and dropped bombs on all the earmarked targets, especially on the coasts of the country. Ships will be here on the western flank of America and bombs on the eastern seaboard. Russia and China are perfecting their plans against the U.S., but the hour is not yet for them to strike this nation.
And frankly, I talked almost not at all about it because I did not want to find myself broadcasting things that turned out not to be what had been represented to me. I was very cautious about it. And it was hard to justify going. It's not an especially safe place to go. What was I going to see that I couldn't deduce from a video? But I was very glad that I did go because the physical relationship between these two different migrations, and most importantly, the approach that the migrants in the Chinese camp had to us was unmistakable. It was hostile. Now, why was it hostile? It's hard to... So part of the reason that you find that number as high as you find it is that given what I saw, it is hard to come up with other explanations for it. Right? Were these people fleeing oppression? That was inconsistent with the way they dealt with us. It did not feel right. Now, can I convey that to you in a way that you would have a degree of certainty about it? Not really. I don't think you know me well enough to know what it would take to trigger that circuit for me. But here's the other question. We have a southern border that is effectively open.
Yep.
We are not doing even the most basic due diligence with respect to establishing who is crossing that border and why. Given that, do you believe that our antagonists abroad will take advantage of that fact? If that hypothesis is that the Chinese Communist Party is sending people across our southern border with the intent to do harm to the United States, I would say 60%.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, there are lots of other possibilities. Does spying fall under that hypothesis? No, I don't think that is specifically to do harm. So
you think it's more than spying. So there's the 60% is like proper harm.
Here's the thing. I know how crazy that sounds. And
Well, my final question will be around that. So one of the early questions I asked you was, is there ever a hypothesis that's so far out that it's better not to even float it out? We've already had that conversation. What I want to understand though with this is what happened that gave you that much confidence? Because I agree with you that this is on the table as one of the things that it very well could be. And I don't think you just said this, but I've heard you say this before, which is really powerful. If you believe that there is some element of financial corruption in our system, which I think everybody agrees there's a lot of money in our system, whether we call it corruption or not is almost a moot point, that there's a ton of money in our politics, money moves the needle here. If people know that from the outside, would they not leverage that to get what they want? So that could be paying a ton of money to ensure that the migrants are allowed in the country. But what I want to know is, this is such a high degree of certainty from somebody I consider so cautious in their thinking. But this falls into that bucket that you're playing with more and more as you got battered through the COVID situation. It felt to me like you got, I don't know if frustrated or angry, but you started making bolder claims. And this one is the one, help me understand, what are the building blocks that make it up? So we know they had their own migration going in. They didn't act in the way that you expected them to act. They were hostile.
well, first of all, let me say, this is part of why I decided I had to go in person.
Because had you already been hearing this before you went?
Yeah. The folks who showed Zach and me this migration had been sending materials for better part of a year. So I was quite aware of what I was likely to see, but it made no sense. And so I began to think of this as an invasion moving in parallel and being cloaked by a migration. The migration is real. The migration is alarming in its own right. It is a humanitarian disaster at the level of what is happening to the people doing the migrating, and it is very definitely being encouraged and facilitated by the international community, which appears to have the idea that migration is inherently a good thing. Now, I don't know how anyone could possibly be that confused, but this is visible if you look at the web pages of the organizations that are doing the facilitating. They say this, that it is their mission to induce migration. They believe that migration is positive. But that migration is cloaking something else. I can't say exactly what that something else is, but it would be irresponsible not to consider the possibility that it is an international competitor taking advantage of our open border to arrange some kind of harm that will be more easily orchestrated that way than it would be on a battlefield.
America will not be able to defend herself, and she will fall to these Eastern powers. And there are three prophecies that are called the kings of the East. One of them is called the kings of the East. Europe will fall to Russia. One of them is called the kings of the East, the third nation, where God revealed that the third nation that you will hear mentioned in one of the prophecies coming up was Korea. At the time that I was prophesying, it was very early 2020, and the Lord had not even told me yet who the third nation would be. But not only is there going to be a third nation, a unified Korea, there's going to be a fourth nation involved in attacking America. It will be China, Taiwan, a unified Korea, and Japan will also be a part of the end times attack and war that is coming. China, Russia, and their allied defensive forces will attack NATO if they try to help America. I've read many times from Revelation chapter 18 about how those that Mystery Babylon, the United States, traditionally depends on, will not want to come near her. And the reason for that will be her torment. America is going to be tormented by the kind of war that is going to be waged here, for the cruelty that the United States has carried around the world to many nations, unprovoked wars, long-lasting wars, wars that have completely destroyed other people's infrastructure, destroyed their roads, their buildings, their economy.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay rooted, stay ready.